Action Point is a 2018 comedy starring Johnny Knoxville. The film was based on the real-life amusement park, Action Park, situated in Vernon, New Jersey. This inspired Knoxville to create a narrative film that includes real-life injuries. The story follows DC as he struggles to keep his amusement park open after the opening of a neighboring competitor. The film was a box office bomb, but I decided to watch the film for myself in light of seeing Jackass Forever. Did I gain newfound respect? Hey guys, and welcome to Garage Movie Reviews, where we just explore a random movie that's on my mind. I just watched Jackass Forever for a second time. I'm a Jackass fan, what can I say? So I watched it twice in theaters, and I actually never saw the movie Action Point. I kind of skipped out on it because it didn't follow the traditional Jackass formula, which is why I like Jackass and Johnny Knoxville. That said, I do in fact enjoy Bad Grandpa. And you know what? I just saw Jackass Forever. I figured I'll give this movie a shot. Like I said, the movie was a box office bomb. It was the least highest grossing of the Jackass franchise. That includes Bad Grandpa. This was a bit of a misfire. Johnny Knoxville is an interesting character because on the one hand, he plays very dumb, he gets kicked in the balls, he injures himself, but I feel like there's more there than people really give him credit for. He's a very intelligent person despite all the concussions. And that's what makes me gravitate towards Johnny Knoxville. He's an interesting performer, he's a charismatic performer, but I feel like he hasn't been utilized correctly in film. I always viewed him as more of a personality than an actor. People try putting him in movies like Men in Black 2. He was also in movies like Movie 43. And I feel like that's not... You should use Johnny Knoxville as like a personality, just as like a cameo in a film. Almost like a shot of adrenaline, because he's gonna play Johnny Knoxville. The dude is basically Johnny Knoxville. He can't be anything other than that. That's not to say he's not talented, but he's really good at what he does. And I feel like that's what kind of works about Action Point, is that Johnny Knoxville is kind of just being himself. To the point that even when he injures himself, he kind of breaks character and does in that very classic Johnny Knoxville fashion. Johnny Knoxville is also an individual who I think is very passionate about cinema. Yes, what he does is not very critic-friendly. Critics don't really seem to like his shtick. Prior to Jackass Forever, critics didn't really like Jackass, but there was always some element that he respected in film. He does so many tributes to Buster Keaton and the Three Stooges in his film. If you even look at Jackass Forever, he pays tribute to Godzilla and Silence of the Lambs. So he always had respect for cinema in everything he put his hands on. And Action Point is actually no exception. When you look at Action Point, it's a tribute to National Lampoon's movies and movies about camp. I got a lot of Meatballs vibes from this movie. A very 80s kind of nostalgic camp movie vibe. That is even pushed further with the typical crass humor that you would expect from the Jackass crew. One scene that comes to mind is a scene where Pontius gets semened on his hand. And just like those National Lampoon and camp movies from the 80s, there seems to be a theme of anti-corporatism that goes on in this film, which I do appreciate. The neighboring amusement park to Johnny Knoxville's amusement park is called Seven Parks or something like that, which is an obvious diss on Six Flags. And it's funny too, because I was going to do this review, and right before I was going to do it, Joey Diaz was on Joe Rogan, and I decided to give it a listen. And they actually talked about the real life Action Point in it. The sentiments that Joey Diaz said about Action Park kind of reflect what Johnny Knoxville was trying to say in this movie. how everything feels like is run by helicopter parents. Everything feels very regulated and corporate, and sure, that increases the safety of everything, but does it really make for a fun environment? Does it really better kids when you make that sort of environment?
But is that okay?
Yes.
Here's the question.
When I was a kid, I didn't go out to play. I went out to die. Big difference, okay? These little fucking half of fruitcakes today, they go out to play. I went out to die. Remember you hugged your mother and shit like you hugged the good. Ma, I don't know. We're going to go rob a train. I don't know what's going to happen.
That's debatable. In the case of Action Park, I believe it should be closed. At least the Action Park that was notorious in the 80s and 90s. I feel like one of the reasons why this movie didn't do so well is because there's a lot of controversy surrounding this film. A lot of people were not too impressed at Johnny Knoxville's message in this movie. He seems to be very anti-corporation, anti-safety, but he surrounds it around this park that's inspired by a real-life park where a lot of kids got injured and a lot of them died. So a lot of people were kind of put off by the theme of the movie and how it kind of brought real life elements to it. That said, it didn't really bother me. I can see how someone can get offended. Imagine your kid died at Action Park and all of a sudden Johnny Knoxville makes this movie and he's basically, walk it off. I feel like had he maybe distanced himself away from Action Park, like maybe not titling the movie Action Point and using the same font, I feel like it would have made for probably a better grossing film, but a lot of critics and audiences were put off by the fact he's making a mockery out of it. Again, I don't think I've ever been offended by a movie in my life. That's not true. I watched the female Ghostbusters remake.
The power of penny compels you!
Other than that, I've never been offended by a movie in my life, so it didn't really bother me. And there's another Jackass cast member that's in this movie, Pontius, who's actually personally my favorite Jackass member because he seems to be so into what he's doing. He's like really into it. He's a very passionate individual. He's like, yeah, and he's like totally into it. And this is no exception. I think he gives the best performance of the film, actually.
I'm going to just slip one in case the squirrel's frisky. Just stay relaxed. Here. Yeah, wait. There's more where that came from. Oh, look at him.
Shh. Okay, shut up.
Dude, it's in. Ow. Okay.
I kind of wish Pontius was in more films. Again, like I was saying about Johnny Knoxville, if you just throw him in small kind of cameo-like roles, I can see him do that. Now, it sounds like I'm defending Johnny Knoxville. I'm a little biased, obviously, because I'm a Jackass fan. I'm gonna get critical, though. This movie is way too plot-heavy. I think there's a total of 10 stunts in this movie, and most of them were in the trailer. So it kind of makes for a disappointing watch. Again, I watched it with lower expectations. I was just kind of on my couch. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this because I just came out of watching Jackass Forever. So I gave it a shot, and I was pleasantly surprised. It wasn't terrible. It had its charm. It had the 80s cheesy vibe. It had Johnny Knoxville being Johnny Knoxville. Johnny Knoxville's laugh is contagious. What can I say? Ah!
Walk it off!
Despite all that, I feel like the movie was just way too plot heavy. There's a whole plot that goes on between Johnny Knoxville and his daughter, how he's not adequate enough to be the dad, yada yada yada, very cliched shit. And I wish that it would have copied National Lampoon's in tone rather than in plot, because those are always the parts that kind of drag on in those kind of camp movies, is when they try to get sentimental and shit. It's unfortunate. You know, I really want Johnny Knoxville to do something good outside of Jackass, because especially after watching Jackass Forever, I don't want that dude to get concussions anymore, and if that means step away from Jackass, I think it's what's best for him. I don't want to see Johnny Knoxville in his 70s with Parkinson. It could happen, but let's try to prevent it if possible. But yeah, Johnny Knoxville, if you just put him in small roles, but very meaty roles. Stuff that only Johnny Knoxville can do. Because he's not a terrible actor. He's definitely not a terrible actor. And this movie shows he's not a terrible actor. He's actually a charismatic lead in this movie. He does struggle a bit more with the sentimental moments. But other than that, as far as comedic timing and delivery, I think Johnny Knoxville is a really good performer. Same with Pontius. I just wish movies used him. Maybe if he was cast in movies that weren't his passion project. Maybe if he was doing stuff away from Jackass Productions, away from Bad Grandpa, away from Action Point. Maybe if he teamed up with some director, and I'm not saying like a high-class director or like Tarantino or Christopher Nolan, but I'm talking like a solid director who could utilize him correctly. It's hard because Johnny Knoxville oozes 90s angsty vibe, and he is an icon of the early 2000s when it comes to punk. And there were punk filmmakers back in the 90s like a Kevin Smith or a Robert Rodriguez, where someone like a Johnny Knoxville would fit into that kind of movie like a glove. But there's not really that kind of like gritty skater dude director anymore. Someone like a John Waters, what he did back in the 70s. I feel like, well, he actually did play in a John Waters movie, actually. So, yeah. But I'm talking about if he was paired up with that kind of director, just like some indie filmmaker who likes more loose environments, kind of by the seam of the hip. I feel like Johnny Knoxville could do pretty well with that. As far as, like, big studio stuff, like Men in Black 2, I don't think he works as well. But yeah, I'm not Johnny Knoxville's agent, so whatever, don't listen to me. But that's what I think of Action Point. My review was kind of all over the place, I apologize. But yeah, just, I want to see Johnny Knoxville in something other than Jackass, where he gets to act, and maybe not get concussed. Because I'm worried for the dude, especially after watching Jackass Forever. But yeah, that's what this movie made me think. There's kind of not much to say about the movie. What you see is what you get. There's some good moments. I don't think it's as terrible as people think. Some people it has like a 36 on Metascore. There's way more offensive shit out there in the world. But yeah, Action Point. A post-Jackass Forever reflection. There you go.
Ready, steady, go. When I was younger, I could do 4 of these at a time. Oh.